Let it be known throughout the land that the time has come once again to hear a proclamation from your all-knowing exalted one himself. Please welcome your King of Kings to this edition of the King's Court.
Yes, from the lords and ladies to the peasants and common folk, I want to welcome you again to another edition of the King's Court. On the docket this week, something that I wanted to talk about last week, but I wanted to also give viewers an opportunity to go out, catch up on their comic book reading a little bit, plus also with Superman and the Elite being out, that gave me a great topic to discuss there. But I can't sit on this one any longer because I still want to do this show while it's topical, but at the same time, if you haven't read it yet, please stop watching now, because there are going to be spoilers galore in this one. And all I have to say is Batman issue 10. Okay? You've been warned. And now, to the King's Court. There are two things I want to bring up on the King's Court this week. One, holy crap, Batman has a brother. That is like, wow. I know, yes, we've been introduced to versions of Thomas Wayne Jr. before, or Owlman, or insert whatever incarnation you want here, from either Earth 3 or JLA Earth 2. But Scott Snyder has done something that he's retconned a character that you never thought was actually going to be part of the main DC universe, just with the mythos of Batman and being the only child and growing up by, some would still say, unexplained circumstances, because it's never really been explained who raised Bruce. Was it Alfred? Was it another relative? Was it the court system? Was he just handed the trust fund at age 8 and said, here you go have fun, boy? It probably wasn't that, but it's one of those that we've never really gotten that question answered. And now to come through, not just with an outstanding series in the Court of Owls, and we all kind of said, at least a few of us nerds kind of said at the beginning of the 52 relaunch that, hey, that Lincoln March guy looks a lot like Bruce Wayne. I wonder if there's going to be anything there. And insert little plot points here and there and this and that. And finally, issue 10 arrives, and Batman has defeated the Court of Owls, only to sit back and go, something's still not quite right. Something still doesn't feel right about this whole thing. It's just that inner detective is going, we still got work to do. And all of a sudden notices a picture of his parents and notices the heart-shaped pin that is on his mother's jacket. And all of a sudden, all the pieces are put together. And Batman races off to the city morgue where he finds that Mr. Lincoln March is not dead. And all it says in there is a little note saying, follow me down the rabbit hole. And down the rabbit hole we go. Wow. Now, if you take the Earth 2 or Crime Syndicate Owlman, you'll know that he was actually the surviving member of the Wayne family, that Bruce and Martha were actually killed off. Also in this universe, Thomas Wayne Sr. becomes commissioner of the Gotham Police Department. And through that story, you get introduced to Owlman, you get introduced to the Crime Syndicate, and then you also get introduced to the fact that Bruce has a brother. Now, this wasn't officially brought over to really brought over to the DC main continuity Just because I'm sure they had so many hundreds and storylines and this and that all going. It's like, how do we bring this guy into the whole thing? So he kind of became a secondary, a B, or some may even consider a C-list villain in Batman's Rogue Squadron. But when you sit back and you look at what Scott Snyder was able to do, especially fresh, right off the relaunch, and that is one of the best things I have to say about this, is that we didn't do this 3-4 years down the road. It wasn't just, oh, we ran out of villains already, who can we bring out? No, we're starting with brand new continuity. We're introducing this character right off the bat in a new continuity, so he's going to be there from day one. Scott Snyder, you are a mad doctor. That's all I can say. I mean, good. Wow. Reading your stuff is like, sincerely, like going back and watching the first two. Maybe you can throw the third Saw movies in there, where you're sitting back and you're watching the movie and you're trying to pick up on little hints here and there, and then all of a sudden at the very end, the last 5 minutes, they just kind of blow your mind about how all this stuff was tied together, and you're like, I didn't even see that coming. You even sit and watch that the second time after they revealed it, and you're like, okay, I can see that. I still didn't see that. I still didn't see that. And then, to tie this all the way through 6-7 movies like they did, well, granted, yes, the later ones were pretty much torture porn. We don't need to go down that road. I'm talking the originals here, specifically the original Saw. Just the way that they were able to do that movie, it really brought me back to the first time I saw that. And when they made the big reveal as Bruce goes to Willowwood, which, by the way, if they didn't use that for the hospital's name, what a great name for a supervillain. Seriously, Willowwood, the character just writes himself. Anyway, moving on. So he goes to Willowwood, which is now just completely run down, and says, I'm here, and is trapped into a net, and all of a sudden Mr. Lincoln reveals himself and starts going down the mystery of what happened. And this is where it gets super fascinating, because originally, from the JLA series, Thomas Wayne Jr. was the older brother of Bruce Wayne. But now with the new continuity, with the reboot and everything like that, you'd have to imagine that if Thomas was the older brother, something would have happened, then people would have always been mentioning it to Bruce, and it just, you could find a way to retcon it in there, but it's really trying to shove a square peg into a round hole. What they did was beautiful. They made him the younger brother. They made it so that he was born prematurely. So right away, they already put that chip on his shoulder that he's the runt of the family. And the Waynes take him to Willowwood, which was the premier children's hospital and care center at the time. And with them, they started to donate a lot of money to the hospital. Hence the pin, because everyone who has a child that goes there got the heart-shaped pin. But all of a sudden, a few years down the road, money dries up. Well, why does money dry up? Because Thomas and Martha were murdered. Dun dun dun! Gee, I wonder where I've heard this story before. And slowly Willowwood starts, going down in tech and going, the falls of lack of funding. And with that, Thomas is kind of swept under the rug and is picked up of sorts by the Court of Owls, because the Court of Owls sees a potential future ally here. Once the heir apparent to the Wayne family grows of age, now we have this weapon that can take him down. but he winds up using the court for his own dastardly deeds, and now we finally get the showdown between Bruce and Thomas. And just the way that they pieced it all together, the way that the story has flowed from here on out, or from this point back. And I mean, like I said, some of us kind of went, well, this has got to be Owlman. I mean, Court of Owls. It only makes sense. But to see Owlman appear like this and actually retcon it in, like I said, into the main new 52 universe and where they're going to go from here. Wow. I mean, this issue blew my mind. This was seriously like issue number 5. It was either 5 or 6, where you're sitting there and all of a sudden the page, you're having to start to read the book sideways and then upside down, and then you're rotating the book as you're getting the sense of Batman going farther and farther into insanity, and you're just like, that is really, really cool. I still had one complaint with that book, but we're not going to go down that road right now. So, I mean, this more than proves that Batman, and this is coming from me, who is a huge Superman fan, Batman is the book that is carrying DC right now. There's no doubt about it. And to have a talent like Scott Snyder sitting there just cranking out issue after issue and just playing head games with the audience all the way through as we joyfully go down the rabbit hole. After taking the blue pill, you're sitting there and you're just like, wow, where can we go next? And of course, issue 11 will be the end of the Court of Owls series, where we finally get the throwdown between Owlman and Batman. So if you haven't been reading the new Batman, the new 52 Batman, you can pick up Volume 1, Batman Volume 1, The Court of Owls, the first 6 issues of this run. I mean, right now on Amazon, it's like $15. If you buy it at your local comic store, it's probably going to be about, $25, $30, give or take, depending on what your taxes are and all that fun stuff. But this is one of those that I would say, I mean, even if you're not a superhero fan in general or a cape fan, but you like comics, or even somebody who wasn't even into comics and was like, I'm just looking for a great story, this is one I would hand them instantly and say, sit back and enjoy the ride. So that's what I have to say about Batman the Court of Owls. The second part of this, I've already given him enough praise, but if Scott Snyder is not the hottest thing in comics right now, you're obviously either living in 1979 or you've been under a rock for the last 50 years. His continuous work with Batman, with American Vampire, which I know I'm not reading yet, but I'm hopping on that bandwagon as soon as I can. Each week each month he's able to crank out beautiful issue after beautiful issue after beautiful issue. I know every year Spike TV does their Scream Awards where they honor someone from the comic book industry, and this year, if it is not Scott Snyder who wins best comic, or best writer in a comic series, or whatever they technically want to call that category, that is the gravest injustice I think I've seen since, last year's, when Bill Murray walked out wearing the Ghostbusters outfit and did that horrible, horrible tease that we're getting Ghostbusters 3, and now is sitting there and won't even read the damn script. Yeah, I'm a little bitter about that one, but we'll save that for another court. So, even though he may or may not win that here, I can sit here tonight and truthfully say that Scott Snyder, the king, hereby decrees you, Sir Scott and Snyder, as you are the first person to be knighted by the King of Kings in the King's Court. So congratulations to you. Wear your honor and title proudly. And with all that having been said, I bring this edition of the King's Court to a close for this week with these parting words. If you're not reading Batman, seriously, I think you need to be checked into a mental institution, because this is the hottest book going today. You're doing yourself the gravest injustice possible by not reading it. So go buy it. Peace.